followers. Now you can hear me. Sorry about that. Yeah, everyone hit the like button. So, yeah, if there's anyone new here from the Patriot Panel, welcome. I just want to let you all know that my wife was just on the phone with me, and now I'm in trouble because I said, I told people I'll be there at 11. I got to leave. And she said, oh, the wife's on the back burner, and hung up on me. So, maybe not the best decision. So, yeah, this is the after show, Patriot Super Panel. I usually do this every week. Yeah, Bill Gates being tied to... I'll get to that. I don't know much about that, to be honest. Bill Gates is tied to some of the facilities that were working on the coronavirus, like the one in Canada that supposedly the virus came from. He was in charge of... He's on the board of several firms that were kind of pushing this stuff, but yeah, I'm not the best person to talk about that. So, yeah, flowers, I'll need them. I'll make it up to her tomorrow. But, that's how much I care about the audience. Not as much as my wife, despite what she thinks, if she's watching right now. But, yeah, I did tell people I'd be here at 11, so I tried to. So, yeah, let's discuss what went on today on the panel. So we had two topics that we really covered before we got to phone calls. The first was the public charge topic, and the other was the coronavirus. So we started with the coronavirus, so we might as well start with that. First, just some housekeeping stuff. I got this new background, which can eventually become a green screen, so... that's exciting. I also am on podcast now, and the link's in the description to this, where you can find me on Podbean. That will soon become available on iTunes and on Spotify. So if you would rather just hear my soothing voice, you'll be able to talk about that. Yeah, I thought it was a great panel. That was the first time that I got to hear Jessica from Veterans Truth. So that was great. I thought she sounded really good. Let me see. I got a couple texts here. But yeah, I thought it was a really good show. I really like, one of the things I like is how we're coming from different angles on things, and I think that's a really good thing. So we don't agree on everything with everyone, but I think that's awesome. Who wants just 6 people just sitting around agreeing? So, you might see, and I can totally understand where everyone's coming from. I think that Mike from the Patriot Hour is more in tune with kind of the behind the scenes of Trump maybe bringing down this corruption. I think Trump's relying on Barr. I don't know that he's got some backdoor plan to end this corruption. I think that he thinks Barr's the man, and I think Barr is not the man, and I think this corruption will not be solved. So there's these little differences, but I think at the end of the day, we're all patriots, and we all want the same thing. So, yeah, let's start. It does look like I'm laying on a bed. No, it's this thing. It's called a web around. Now, keep in mind my situation here. When I'm at my work office, I can't change the background, so this is the best I could do. So, yeah, just start off with, follow me, if you're on YouTube, follow me on DLive. I'm going to, I think, make the second hour of this live stream, because I'll probably go till 1. We'll see, though. I don't know how much I have to say. If I do, I'm going to start making the second hour of my live streams DLive exclusive. So... one other thing, I'm going to start like I just started right here because my podcast will start right here in a moment. All right, so if you're tuning in, yeah, this is the first Patriot Panel after show podcast. So, yeah, I was just talking to everyone here real quick. So, if you're listening, thanks for listening. So, yeah, let's get started with what we talked about with the coronavirus. So, yeah, I thought the Veterans for Truth, I thought she was great with the specifics that's going on with the coronavirus. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, this is something that I say a lot, and it's kind of a theme throughout tonight's show. I think that you'll see. I understand, and I've looked at a lot of the kind of deep sea conspiracy theories behind stuff. Now, I have people sending me stuff all the time that are more involved in that. I'm not saying that that stuff's wrong, right? So when we start talking about the Georgia Guidestones or something, the coronavirus is like the dragon from Revelations, that's not my forte. That's not what I deal in. I think that my show is trying to tell normal Americans of the problems that we have in our government, such as the corruption we talk about, such as the problems with socialism and things like that. If I walk up to the people in my hometown, right, and I say, hey man, what do you think about this government? And they're like, yeah, the government sucks. Rural America's got screwed over. No one cares about us. We don't have a voice. And I'm like, yeah, you're exactly right. And they're like, yeah, Rob, you ran for Congress. What do you have to say about that? And I say, well, it all started back in the 1400s with the Luciferians and the Rothschilds. And then they set up this secret society. And it's just, you lose people. That doesn't mean that that's not correct. I'm not saying that. But it's not my area of expertise, and I don't spend a lot of time on that. Now, if you're one of those people, you might be saying, well, then you've lost the plot, Rob. You don't see the bigger picture. Maybe so. But there needs to be a bridge if you really believe that, from where people are today in total ignorance and to that. To just start people off on that type of stuff oftentimes has the opposite effect. People just tune you out. They say, oh, okay. And that's my worry on a lot of the coronavirus, particularly if we're talking about it. It could very well be true that this was made in a... my gut is it was weaponized in a lab. I believe that. It could have been released intentionally by the Chinese. It could have been done so that they could crack down in Hong Kong, or so they could, recoup their losses from ghost cities, which it's certainly true. China, just like the US and countries that deal in fiat currencies, are constantly in perpetual debt and deficit. And so maybe this is a way for them to recoup their losses. I have to claim ignorance of this. I don't know a lot about the specifics of that. I don't. My guess is this is probably something that they were weaponizing that got out of control. I don't think that they would have unleashed it in the way they had if it was necessarily designed to be a weapon against the United States economy. But maybe. I'm not saying it couldn't be. Here's all I know. I don't have to go that deep in it. And I think this is a problem that we allow the people that shape the narrative to do quite often. And that is, they will take I won't even say ridiculous. Again, if you're listening, I'm not making fun of anyone who's a, quote, conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I certainly am. That term is being batted around by the people that shape the narrative to somehow mean that you're not to be valued or listened to. I think that's the exact opposite of the truth. We should value and listen to these type of things. But the biggest conspiracy peddlers of all are the establishment. I mean, they still say Epstein killed himself. It's nonsense. So I'm not here to make fun of anyone or say anyone's wrong for that type of stuff. That's not what I'm saying. But oftentimes, like, take 9/11, for example. Here was my take on 9/11. The very basic take on it was just this. We used to be involved in what was called the Cold War. And I remember growing up with movies like Red Dawn, and there was this serious fear that the Soviet Union was going to fly planes over the United States and drop nuclear weapons. That was a serious fear. So much so, the kids had to hide under tables and you had to have nuclear weapon drills, etc. when they were in schools, right? So just a few short years, only a little more than a decade or so after the end of the Cold War, somehow after 3 airplanes were flown, 2 into 2 buildings, 1 into a field in Pennsylvania, the most protected building in the United States, probably in the world, in the Pentagon, was allowed to be hit by a 4th plane. That seems like a catastrophic failure of our defense and the people that are in charge of our defense. So what was changed? Who was being disciplined? Who was punished, or who was to blame for this catastrophic failure? And when I would say that, people would say, oh, you're one of these people that believe the Twin Towers were holograms? No, I didn't say that. Right? And then they lump you in with people that are going in a deeper dive. And look, the hologram thing was wrong. But you see what I'm saying in spirit. It's the same thing they do over and over. So, for example, I could talk about an issue like the Las Vegas shooting and say, oh, it seems strange. Why is it that so many of these people that are mass killers like that had connections to the FBI, had connections to the CIA? It seems odd that they couldn't figure anything out about this guy. Seems odd that their story changed 6, 7 times. The person that showed up, the guard that supposedly shot him, the only place he got interviewed after changing his story multiple times was Ellen. It seems like we should have a more hard-hitting journalist than Ellen interviewing the crucial witness on the biggest mass shooting in U.S. soil history. But then when I say that, people are like, oh, so you believe that, da-da-da-da-da. No, I just said what I said. So one of the impetus for me and how I talk to people, what I wanted to do with my show is, how do I explain the actual corruption we could see? How do I explain the actual way that normal Americans are getting screwed over to normal Americans? That doesn't mean that then there isn't another level to go to. There certainly could be. So I don't know how deep the conspiracy on the coronavirus goes. I know that, like some of the other people in the panel were saying, that we've had virus stories been overblown in the past, and that's been used. Trust me, when Warren Buffett's out there talking about how this will affect markets, he's not saying that because he cares about your portfolio. He's saying that because he knows his voice influences the markets, and then he could game off of that to make more money. So could this just be fear-mongering? It could. Could it be an attack against the United States by China? It could. Could it just be China trying to recoup economic losses? I guess that could be. Could it be China intentionally trying to stop the momentum the Hong Kong protesters had? It could. Could the government in the United States use this as an excuse to say the economy's sinking to try to bury Trump? That could happen. But I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to tell you that I have some sort of in-depth knowledge of what's going on here. I did a couple videos on this. I talked about how the person that was responsible for the 1989 treaty, or 1989, law is not the right word, but statute on terrorists using biological weapons in the United States, the doctor, he said that he feels this was probably from a lab. I also talked about how this strain was in a lab in Canada, and then people were arrested for basically being involved with the Chinese government that left, and that same strain of virus left from Canada to China. So that stuff's all happened. But I can't tell you what the specific agenda is. What I can do is speak on the broader landscape of this, which is, one, it's a shame that we don't have a media that's actually looking into this. Tucker Carlson's trying, good for him. Other than that, who do we really have? And second, it's a shame that we can't even trust our government to keep us protected from something like a pandemic. Do you trust them? I don't trust them, one, because they're corrupt, but second, because they're incompetent as well. I mean, look at the Iowa caucus. And so that's my big takeaway of the coronavirus. And you should take steps to ensure that you're ready for any kind of emergency to protect yourself and your family. Now, does that mean you have to build a bunker in your yard? No, I'm not saying that. Do what you think's necessary. I don't have the tips for you. I know the one caller that called in was talking about learning bush skills and stuff like that. Maybe that's the correct thing to do, but that's not my forte. But anytime you're reliant on others for your safety or your family's safety, it's a mistake. I don't think you have to go overboard, but I'm just saying. So, yeah, that's my take on the coronavirus. Again, I did make the little quip, which is true. China is definitely our number one geopolitical adversary in the world. I mean, that's certainly true. Right, and that's exactly it. It doesn't matter if it was intentional or not, right? And this is the point. Let me go back to this before I get to China being our biggest geopolitical adversary. The point I'm trying to make is this. It doesn't matter if these, quote, conspiracies started off intentional or not. The truth is that governments and authoritarians have become experts over the past centuries at exploiting, whether it be intentional acts that they can exploit or whether it be happy accidents that they can exploit. And so they'll find a way to exploit whatever. For example, do I believe that every mass shooter in the U.S. is somehow like programmed by MK Ultra and was set up by the CIA? No, I don't believe that. Could there be some of that? It's worth looking into, certainly. But certainly, everyone can be exploited. And at the end of the day, that's what we as people on the ground need to be aware of. You don't have to prove, oh, wait, the Pittsburgh synagogue shooter was actually set up by the FBI. You don't have to prove that. What you need to get adept in seeing is how are tragedies like this being exploited. And that's the first step. Once you can learn to see through that programming. Look, this is being exploited. They're using it to take away our rights. Then you can take the next step of, and are all of these on the up and up as we were told? And this is a problem I see over and over. And it's something you'll see as a recurring theme on my show. Look at the impeachment scandal, just as an example, right? Now, the so-called whistleblower, yes, definitely had connections to Biden, had connections to the Obamas, had connections to Vindman, etc. Right? He had all these connections. That's certainly true. The Republicans in the House spent all this time talking about that. Now, when I go and I talk to people on the street where I'm from, and I'm like, look, this impeachment's nonsense, and I start talking about the whistleblower and stuff, they're like, you're losing me. But that's where the Republicans put the majority of their defense, in the House. Now, once it got to the Senate and Trump's defense team got there, they started making the right arguments. You go back 3 months ago and watch me, as I'm watching every single day in the House, live streaming, the impeachment testimony, 7-8 hours at a time, sometimes I'm live streaming. Listening to the witnesses as they speak, going through the problems with them, right? Go back. What did I say every time? I'm like, no, the Republicans are making the wrong case. The way you explain this to normal Americans is this. If there's someone in the executive branch who's using billions of your dollars to threaten a country to fire a prosecutor that's looking at their son's company, do you think there should be an investigation? That's it. Once you start getting it, like, and it's good, and I talked about Zelensky, I talked about Zlochevsky, I talked about, Burisma and what was going on with the company, and I talked about Viktor Shokin, and I talked about Lutsenko, the prosecutor that took over for him, and I could tell you about Leshchenko, the parliamentarian that interfered in the election, and I could tell you about all the people at the head of the NABU that were involved in influencing the election. And that's all good information, and I try to bring this on the channel. But the real point I'm trying to get past is, how can a normal American that's not heavily investigated and, I have hours, because a lot of us have hours in some, have hours upon hours. We're entertained by this. We see that we're fighting for our country, we're fighting against this corruption, but we're also enjoying it while we're doing it. A lot of people, and I can't begrudge them, they don't have that sort of talent to look into it or time to look into it, etc. So how do you start the conversation with them? And that's what I'm trying to do. Settle down, Dib. I was just using it as an example. But so the same would be true of the coronavirus for me. Of course, I don't mind people talking about it. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I've heavily researched it. Yes, there are connections to all sorts of shady things, but I do know this. This is what I know. I know I don't trust my government to tell the truth. I know I don't trust the Chinese government to tell the truth. I know I don't trust the journalists to tell the truth. I know that it will be exploited regardless if it was just a naturally occurring disease, or if it was manufactured and accidentally released, or if it was manufactured and purposely released. Whatever of those three scenarios, it will be exploited by the Chinese government, it will be exploited by the globalists, and it will be exploited by the establishment in the United States. And so I'm weary of anything they tell me about it. Right. You're your best source. So that's what I thought about the coronavirus, It's a shame. It illustrates to me how shameful it is that we have such corruption in our government. Because, look, say what you will, no matter how deep of a dive you get on it is, even if you think, the coronavirus, this was intentionally set up, surely all of us can agree there could be a biological disease, a pandemic, that has nothing to do with being intentionally created. That theoretically could happen. One of the things that you would expect your local, state, national government to do was be able to help with disasters like this, naturally occurring disasters, whether it be a tornado, a hurricane, a disease. And it's a shame that we can't rely on our government. That's one of the few jobs they should have, to be able to help support individuals. But we don't. They're too busy being corrupt and stealing the wealth from the middle class and being globalists. Yeah, I'll talk some Bernie tonight. Don't worry. Let's move on to the public charge stuff. So again, this kind of goes along with Bernie. So for those of you that didn't catch the live stream, this topic was as follows: that Trump's administration is going to start pushing to what they call public charge, which is kind of when immigrants come in, legal immigrants come in, we're going to decide, will they be a drain on our economy? In other words, we don't leave people in as much that are going to be on welfare systems, and if you are a legal immigrant, you won't have access to as many of those welfare systems. Of course, this is a great idea. My first take on this, as soon as I hear it, the first thing I say is, and I said this in my stream with Drone Tech and SJG, talking about the debates, the last Democratic debate, when you hear Bernie and all these socialists say, what about Denmark? What about Scandinavia? What about the UK? What about Canada? Talking about their healthcare system and the idea of universal healthcare. Why is it that the same people that say we need to look at those countries for our morality, all of a sudden that argument stops when we're talking about immigration? Because all those countries are very serious about their immigration standards. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to try to bring up something I wrote a long time ago. Let's see if I can bring it up. I won't be able to tonight. I'll do it some other time. I was writing back in 2016 I said, I have the solution to our immigration woes. All of the establishment progressive type people tell me, oh, illegal immigration, it's a huge benefit to our country. You've seen the videos I've done on this. It's a benefit. It helps our economy. The more, the merrier. It's great. It's great. It's great. And shame on the United States for not welcoming these people that make the United States a better place. Heck, they're better Americans than the Americans. That's what we hear from the AOCs of the world, right? So my solution is, I also know it's better to give than receive. I think it's unfair that the United States is getting all of these benefits from illegal immigration. So why don't we pick up the, 11 to 27 million illegals that we have and send them to Canada? Now, Canada's a progressive place. Like Justin Trudeau, he's super woke, right? And they tell us how illegal immigrations are great for the country. So Canada would say, sure, with open arms, we'll take all of those illegals right now. Right? Isn't that what they'd say? Oh, wait, no. Trudeau's out there saying things like, we can't take anymore. We've taken enough. Yet Bernie wants us to look at Trudeau's healthcare system and say, see how moral they are? Yet the very immigration system that these countries have, whether it be Denmark, Canada, the UK, etc., we're called bigots for wanting a similar immigration system in our country. If we don't want to take people that we know will be a drain on the economy, that are going to be getting food stamps or welfare or other forms of assistance, somehow that makes us a bigot. That's nonsense. And I talk about this often. Check out the last video I just did on my channel. Before, not the hyping the panel today, but the actual video I did that wasn't live. It's about Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks, right? Now, he's a stand-in for Bernie Sanders and the socialists and the progressives here. He's one of their biggest cheerleaders. He just happens to be in the media. See, Cenk, I've witnessed him for years do this. Just like I've witnessed Bernie. Just like I've witnessed all these people in Hollywood, etc. All of these bleeding heart people that are more moral than you. They're more intelligent, but they're certainly more moral than you. They care more about the poor people. That's what they tell you, right? Almost every time we start to look at their personal life with a microscope, they're entirely hypocritical. They go against everything they preach. Victor David Hansen, who's a great historian you should check out, lives in California. I got this from him. He says, they demand for you a utopia which they'll never have the misfortune of living in. In other words, they have all these rules for you, and they say, this would be the perfect society. You just have to listen to these rules. Oh, but that's not for us. We're going to be outside of that. Well, if it's so perfect, why aren't they willfully engaged in it? So Cenk, who's someone who promulgates, oh, unions are great, business owners need to pay more, etc. It's immoral for business owners to be making money. They should be sharing the profits with their employees. Well, February 12th, according to the Huffington Post, Cenk Uygur, on Twitter, Cenk's people at the Young Turks started to tweet a handle out that said, we're going to unionize. So Cenk has a meeting with his employees where he basically gets infuriated, throwing papers on the floor, yelling at people, telling them that they can't unionize. Why? Because it will harm the bottom line of his company. It won't be able to grow as much. They won't make as much money. You see how that works? See, Cenk and his company, they need to make money. They understand that socialism would be a drain on their company. So they want to be capitalist in their company, but everyone else should have to be socialist. I talk about this a lot. A while ago, I wish I could find it. I think it was on CNN. There was a debate where Ted Cruz debated Bernie Sanders, which it was a one-sided debate, as you might imagine. But it was on healthcare. And this woman stands up, and she owns a small company, and she says, this is before Bernie was pushing the Medicare for All stuff as hard as he is. She says, I own this company. I employ like 6 people. I'm a small business owner. I try to pay them a good wage. At the end of the year, I'm only bringing home like $10,000, $20,000 a year in profit. I'm actually paying my employees. They're making more a year than I'm making. Mr. Sanders, do you think that I should have to provide health care, which I can't afford, to my employees? And Bernie says, yes. You're a business owner. Suck it up. Do you see? Cenk endorses that mindset. See, business owners, you must be wealthy. You're corrupt. How'd you get that business? You must be a rich billionaire. But then we see with Cenk, what's he say? Oh, no, I'm a noble person. At Politicon a couple years ago, Cenk debated Ben Shapiro. And they talked about the idea of getting money out of politics. And this is a point I make all the time. What does it mean to get money out of politics? Buddy Roma, who's a billionaire, donated millions of dollars to Cenk to start the Young Turks. Now, the Young Turks, if we get money out of politics, does that mean that they're not allowed to endorse Bernie Sanders? Because we heard from these progressives all the time, oh, the media talking about Donald Trump give him all sorts of dollar amounts of free publicity and press. Okay, well, if you're going to put a dollar amount on the press, we know that it's 95% against Trump. So that means it's 95% for the establishment Democratic Party. So are we going to get that money out of politics? Oh, no. That money's fine. It's okay. See, Cenk thinks it's totally fine for him to be a capitalist, for him to use money and his power and his voice to influence elections. Perfectly fine with that. Just like Bernie Sanders. He doesn't want the Koch brothers giving money. Okay, maybe that's a problem. I've talked to you before about my problem with money in politics. It's not so much the lobbyists, it's the actual people in Washington that are taking the money, and then that allows them to influence their voting pattern. If we didn't have a massive federal government that had the power to pick winners and losers economically, then lobbying wouldn't do anything. Why do you lobby, right? What's going on? If you're a lobbyist, what are you doing? You're trying to pay off someone to vote your way to benefit your company or your issue. If the government doesn't have the ability to benefit your company or issue, and they just say, hey, basically we're free markets, we can't do anything, then why would you lobby? There's nothing you could do. The bigger we make the government, like Bernie wants, then the more effective lobbying will be. It creates more loopholes. It means that the government can pick more winners and losers. We see this occurring in the green energy market. Remember Solyndra under Obama? Have you seen the Green New Deal? Have you heard them talk about how they're going to put fossil fuels out of business? Again, them picking winners and losers. You don't think that green energy companies aren't going to be lobbying like crazy to get picked, to get all these government subsidies and money? Now you might say, well, maybe the fossil fuel industry is doing that now. Perhaps. But making the government bigger is not going to solve the problem. But again, back to the central point, what I was talking about this Young Turks video, or Young Turks story. He understands. It's not just, see, and this is what blows my mind. This is what infuriates me about the socialists. If you want to have a debate about what's better for the country, like statistically, looking at facts, that's fine. I can have that debate. I'm not saying you're a terrible person for wanting to have that debate. But the problem is almost every socialist wants to make more than a factual argument. They want to make a moral argument. Oh, well, morally, we have to give everyone health. Healthcare is a human right. Morally, we can't detain people at the border. And these arguments are garbage because almost everyone who's making these arguments, whether they know it or not, are being hypocritical. Go back and watch the video I did a couple weeks ago about Bernie Sanders. He was asked at a town hall here recently. At the hall, they asked him, sorry I'm missing the chat, plus I'm doing this as a podcast, so the podcast people can't see the chat, obviously. But Bernie's asked by this woman who seems very genuine. She says, hey, you seem like someone who's very authentic. But one of the areas you haven't been consistent on is illegal immigration. Just a decade ago, you were talking about how illegal immigration drives down wages for the poorest of Americans, particularly those in the inner city, which is true. It does do that. You bring in more competition that can artificially take these jobs at a lower wage, then it's going to harm the people that were at the bottom of the economic scale. The same groups the Democrats claim to want to speak for. But they don't care about the poor Americans. So she asked Bernie, she says, why did you change your stance? And Bernie can't give a good answer. Instead, what he says is like, oh, compassion. And by the way, if we didn't have illegal immigration, it would devastate our economy because they do jobs Americans are unwilling to do. Think of how much your produce would cost if someone wasn't being paid 50 cents an hour to pick it. Now, Bernie Sanders has the nerve to claim that he has a moral stance on illegal immigration while he's making that sort of argument. I don't know if you followed it, but what Bernie Sanders just said was, I want to have cheap avocado toast, and so therefore, I want the sweat of illegal immigrants being paid unhuman low wages to benefit me personally financially so I could pay less for my avocados when I go to the supermarket, or for my apples or oranges or whatever. That's disgusting. And I've been telling people this for 5-6 years. The two arguments contradict. The moral argument almost always contradicts with the factual argument that they'll try to make. It's the same with Obamacare. The moral argument was, oh, it's immoral that there are people that break their leg and they can't get health care. And then they'd say, by the way, it would help economically because so many people get health care and don't pay for it. Okay, those two arguments contradict. So what Bernie's really saying, and by the way, it's not just me. I love comedy. I don't take comedians as total prophets and believe everything they say, including this one. But George Carlin talked about it. He said all these people that are going on about global warming and climate change, they don't care about the globe. The earth will exist long after humans are gone. What they care about is their personal situation. That's always the case when they start talking morality. Well, not always, but most of the time. So let's take it back to where we were with this original... Oh, real quick. On this illegal immigrant. I have an argument for you, right? I'm sure Bernie and his supporters will love this, right? You know, there's a lot of countries like in Africa that, take your reason, colonialism, all of this stuff that devastated a lot of these places in Africa. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing. It really is. I'm being serious about that. So they live in these countries, famine, starvation, quality of life, everything. It's really low. War, genocide. A lot of these African countries. So what I'm proposing is, let's get boats, and then we take some of these African people, we'll bring them back to the United States on these boats, and then we'll put them in like little enclaves, and give them a job, give them something to do, like work on a farm. And we put them in these enclaves, right? And we'll feed them 3 square meals a day, and we'll give them shelter, we'll give them, and we'll drive them, we'll give them a spirit and teach them a skills, so maybe they could, pick cotton or something, and we'll really drive them to achieve and work harder. And, where they're coming from is worse. So when they come in, they got shelter over their heads, and they get 3 meals a day, so it's a win-win, right? That's slavery, Bernie. That's what you're having. Oh, these immigrants, they come from worse places. They're fleeing corruption. They're fleeing genocide. So when they come here, yes, it helps our economy. Who cares if they're only getting paid 25 cents an hour? My avocados are cheap, and it's better than the situation they were in. That's the argument the people that are claiming to be your moral betters are making. That's slavery. They're endorsing slavery. I guess it's not slavery if you pay them a couple cents and tell them they could leave. Oh, but then when you look at the details, most of the times they can't leave because they paid some sort of coyote from a cartel to get here. And then many of these business owners end up treating them corruptly and don't leave when they want to anyways. But they don't care about that. Then, of course, if you bring this up to Bernie, he says, oh, no. We want to pay them a living wage. We want to pay them $15-20 an hour. Well, didn't you just say if we paid an American $15 an hour to pick fruit, it would destroy the economy? But somehow if we pay an illegal $15 an hour, it won't destroy the economy? Do you see the insanity here? Now, let's go back to Cenk Uygur, right? At the Young Turks. He says, please don't unionize my employees, because if you do, it'll stop the growth of our company. Almost like he implicitly understands something about this socialist mindset. It stops economic growth. You don't say. Oh, no, just for my company. Now that would be fine if Cenk Uygur wasn't making a moral argument that goes along with his socialism. But he is. Now, over and over, what we see, and I see this constantly on Twitter. Oh, it's just because Bernie lives in society, just because Cenk Uygur lives in society, that means we shouldn't listen to them. They're willing to pay more in taxes. That's not morality. Right? Think of what they're saying, right? Let's take a step back and look at this. They say healthcare is a human right, right? In other words, they're saying depriving someone of healthcare is like depriving them of water or of food. Okay, that's the level they're putting healthcare or their right to free speech. When they talk about human rights, that's what they're saying. So that's a negative act. When you deprive someone of their rights, it's not just that you're indifferent, you're knowingly depriving them, you are actively engaged in a sinful act or in a corrupt act. However you want to look at it. And so, based on that, that's what they're telling us. It's a human right. It's appalling. It's corrupt for the government to not be providing health care for all these people. Okay, let's say that's true. Let's take their argument at face value. I personally know many poor people, myself being one, though I do have health care. But I'm not a wealthy person by any means. I have tons of friends that don't have health care. Now, I'm willing to give this list of names to Cenk Uygur, to Bernie Sanders, to everyone in Hollywood. How much money do they need to live a year? $100,000 a person? They got a family of 400,000? How many lake houses do you need, Bernie? So why don't you sell that lake house and provide my friends and family health care? Then I'm willing to listen to you that other people need to do more as well. Because what you're doing, Bernie, by knowing that you're living in excess, you're a millionaire, right? Same with Cenk Uygur. You guys are millionaires. You don't need all that money. Give it to the poor. Why aren't you? Oh, it's not immoral for them not to do that. Somehow it's like they think I'll only help the poor if the government forces me. That's Cenk Uygur and Bernie Sanders in the socialist argument. I don't care about the poor enough to do something myself to help them. Instead, I'll wait until the government forces me. Now, I'll advocate for the government to force me, but only if they force other people I don't like. Oh, I know people that don't have health care for sure. Maybe I live in a poor area of the world. And most of them, it's their fault, if I'm honest with you. So this moral argument is bogus. You demanding, remember, anytime the government takes taxation, it's by force. And anytime you're talking about something by force, that's at the point of a gun. The threat of violence, the threat of taking away your freedom makes you comply with the government taxation policies or with government laws, right? It's simple. Otherwise, if there was no threat of force, would you pay your income taxes? If there was no bite to it, if the government was like, hey, could you please send us income tax? Well, do I get punished if I don't? No. You'd be like, okay, then no, I'm not going to send you income taxes. So it's the threat of force that's compelling you. If your argument is, I am only willing to be what I consider a moral person if the government compels me to do so, then you're not a good person. My stance is, I'm not saying healthcare is a human right. I'm not saying it's immoral if the government doesn't take people's money and give it to other people for them to have healthcare. Therefore, if I'm not donating my money to give my friend that doesn't have healthcare, I'm not engaged in an immoral activity, at least based on my own code of morality. Bernie and all of these socialists are willfully acting in ways that their own code says is immoral. Now, why would you trust someone like that to run a government that they want the power expanded more large than we've ever seen in history? Trust Bernie, he's a good guy. He'll take care of it. Trust Cenk Uygur, they care about the workers. Oh, but not their workers, not the workers that work directly for them. No. Cenk needs to make that money. The Young Turks need to get bigger. They got to get more powerful. So he can't afford to help his workers. You see how that works? Bernie can't afford to sell his third lake house. Did you hear Bernie at that debate? I mean, say what you will about Bloomberg, he got crushed. And in many ways, I find Bloomberg more despicable than Bernie because he's cheating to win. But Bloomberg had an excellent point. It was like, isn't it funny that the premier socialist in this country is a millionaire who owns 3 houses? And Bernie's like, yeah, I need 3 houses. You know, I got my house in D.C. and I got my house in Vermont and then I got a summer camp. A summer camp. Your definition of, look, I live in rural PA. I see camps, like hunting camps. You'd throw them together for like $2-3 grand. A couple 2x4s, an outhouse. I've seen nicer ones than that too. But that's what you're calling your lake house? A summer camp? Yep, Bernie. And what did Bernie do again? Has he created jobs? Has he done something to benefit this country other than being a thinking man? Getting paid off the taxpayer dime? He started a company? Did he make a product that helped the country? Did he develop a vaccine or some cure for some illness? Nope. Just grifted off the government his whole life. Then wrote a book based on him grifting off the government. But you see, him being a millionaire is perfectly fine. I talked about this a little, I think, on the panel. I'm not going to claim that I got this on my own. I heard this from George Orwell, but I have read most of this book. I heard this from Jordan Peterson about George Orwell. George Orwell wrote this book, and I think it's very important. I know people tune out sometimes when I'm talking about this stuff, but George Orwell, if someone in my audience doesn't know who that is, he wrote the book 1984, Animal Farm. These are about dystopian governments getting power and taking away, the rights of the individual, and just really hellish nightmare scenarios of governments gone corrupt and too powerful. George Orwell is a self-declared socialist. And so he was being paid by all of these groups in the UK, like the socialist groups in the UK, to write about the plight of the working class. And so he writes this book called The Road to Wigan Pier. And they used to be called serials, so they would come out like weekly in the local newspaper, each chapter, right? So you didn't release the whole book at once. You released one chapter at a time. And the first half of the book's him going to Wigan Pier, where there's like miners. I think they were coal miners. And it's horrific the way he explains it. The conditions that these workers work in are disgusting. You know, he talks about you have to walk like 2 miles through the cave, the mine that you're in, before you get to work. And you have to, it's like only 3 feet high. So everyone's got like these horrible back problems. And he sees women pulling their teeth out because they're like, teeth is a misery. I mean, it's just, I'm not going to go into all the details, but it's terrible. And you know, the socialists are like, yes, you know, the proletariat, the working man, we have to stick up for the working man. So Orwell outlines the case for how abused these workers are. Okay. That's something worth doing. The second half of the book, Orwell basically makes the argument, look, I have sympathy for these workers. It's disgusting how they're being treated. It's a horrible way to live. But the socialists that paid me to go and speak about this, I have a funny feeling they don't care about the workers. They care about hating the people that have more than them. And so they're using the people that have less to say, look at them down there. See, this person that has more should be giving more to these people that have less. Not because they're concerned about the people that have less, but because they hate the people that have more. And obviously, the people that were paying Orwell to write this book, not impressed with that. But there's truth to that. Now, I can't look into the heart of Bernie Sanders or Cenk Uygur. I can judge them by the actions that I see, and they're hypocrites, which tends to let me to believe that either they don't believe their crap or they do hate those with more than they care about the ones they claim to speak up for. But I'll tell you this, there are certainly a good portion of people that follow that socialist ideology that believe that. The fact that Bernie Sanders spent years telling us about the corruption of, quote, millionaires and billionaires. But then once he became a millionaire, then it was just billionaires that were the problem. You see how that works? And if Bernie becomes a billionaire, then it'll be the trillionaires that are the problem. In other words, anyone with 1 penny more than Bernie is immoral. Not just that they're wrong or they're hurting their country, they're immoral. They should not be allowed to have that money. That's Bernie's claim. Now, if you're living under a street in San Francisco and you're homeless, the difference between your wealth and Bernie Sanders' wealth is greater proportionately than the difference between Bernie Sanders' wealth and Mike Bloomberg's wealth. So wouldn't that person living under the bridge have the right to say, hey, Bernie, shut your mouth. All these criticisms you're making of Bloomberg, I make to you. What are you personally doing? And what's Bernie going to say? Oh, I'm out there advocating for socialism. I'm trying to take Bloomberg's money and give to you. I'm not going to willfully give you my money. Please. I need that third. I need my summer camp, that lake house. I'm not going to willfully. You think I'm going to not ride first class? I'm not going to fly in private jet? No, I can't. Of course, I need to live in gated communities. We should have more illegal immigrants come over and sleep under the bridge with you, though. You're immoral if you're not willing to share your newspaper under the bridge that you're using as a blanket with illegal immigrants. Shame on you. That's the nonsense of this ideology. You want to talk about what would be better for the country, what would be better for the economy, what would be, in a utilitarian sense, the greatest good for the greatest people, and talk facts? I'm cool with that. I can have that debate. I'm confident that socialism is terrible, and I can argue why. But don't come at me with this moral crap. It's ridiculous. I got people saying they're doing dishes while listening to me. So yeah, that's what's going on with Bernie. Now, the Democratic Party has stoked the flames. The establishment has stoked the flames of socialism, right? And you have to go way back to understand what this is and the idea of cultural Marxism. So if you start going back, there was this big academic, and I'm not claiming to be an expert. You check this for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. Mike at the Patriot Hour says that all the time. Great point. Don't just take anyone's word for something. Do the research yourself. But this isn't like groundbreaking stuff. This isn't like something that's hidden. There was a big debate on university campuses going all through the 40s, 50s, etc., on which system was better, capitalism or socialism. You had this idea of what we call modernity versus postmodernism. Now, I'm not going to be an expert on postmodernism, but I'll give you kind of a rundown of what's going on. Just a real crash course. Modernity says that there is a truth, that there is a way to do things, that the West is the best. And so it looks at cultures around the world and it looks at history and says, look at how we used to torture people, we used to starve people, it used to be this ridiculous class-based system where, you could just abuse, slavery and all that crap. And yeah, the West had problems, but it learned to get out of that. And that's modernity. There is a truth. There is a way to act. There is a culture that we should strive for, right? And the way you look at this philosophically is, you would say that there is capital T truth, right? Here's the way the postmodernists would explain it. Like, say you think of the word chair. A modernist would say, there is a perfect chair out there that all chairs should strive to be like. Maybe it's different for each situation, but the idea of chair, there's a chair out there. Postmodernism comes around and says there is no such thing as truth. There is no capital T truth. When they talk about truth, they talk about lower T truth. In other words, we all have our own truths. And the West isn't the best. There is no best culture. And that there's infinite ways to interpret the world. And because of that, there is no right answer. There is no truth. So they would say there is no chair, right? There is no idea of a chair out there. That's what the postmodernists would say. Now, there's all different forms of this, but that's what it comes down to. Now, because there's no truth, you can't argue with the postmodernist, because the mere fact that you're using, quote, facts, there are no facts. A fact implies there's truth, but there is no truth. And so what you saw people like Michel Foucault. He would do what he called genealogies. And that's where he would go back and look at history. And he would say history was written by the winners. And therefore, I'll go back and I'll rewrite history through the perspective of some of the losers. So one of the first things Michel Foucault wrote about was the definition of the insane, or the definition of people with mental illnesses. And so he goes back and looks for hundreds of years how we've defined people with mental illnesses and how that's changed based on who's in power. Now, the truth is the postmodernists correctly point out a lot of things that's wrong with the modernists. The problem is they don't have an alternative, right? So it's just like saying, yeah, your system sucks. Okay, well, what do you recommend? Well, we don't have anything to change it with. So a lot of their criticisms are true, right? Like, for example, criticizing capitalism. There are criticisms, but what's the alternative? We've yet to come up with a better system. And so they just say, no, we need to reject capitalism. And you're like, well, what do you replace it with? Well, so they came up with Marxism. But the problem is this: how can you have Marxism underlying postmodernism? Because postmodernism says there is no truth. There is no right answer. So then how could you say, but here's the system that we want? That's a contradiction right out of the gate. Anyways, it sounds confusing. But this stuff, years later, is what your kids are being indoctrinated with, regardless if they know it or not. And I'll explain to you how it shows up, if you're listening for it. It shows up in politics all the time. Right? I'll explain that in a minute. So anyways, to get back to our story, you had all these people arguing, what's better, capitalism? What's better, communism? Right? Soviet Union. Well, the problem was, it became evident that communism was horrific. 50 million plus people dead under Mao, 25 million under Stalin. Not wars, right? And that's what people lose sight of here, right? Yes, the United States has done some terrible things. I call out the former regime change wars all the time. And certainly there have been bad instances of the United States harming other people and harming their own people as well. But when we're talking hundreds of millions of dead under communism and these socialism, we're not talking about the wars they started. We're talking about their own people. I mean, they rounded up everyone that was farmers. They called them kulaks. They exiled them, and then no one knew how to farm. Now, this was all in the name of morality. It's just like they're saying today. How dare these farmers own the land? It's everyone's land. So they got rid of the farmers. Okay. Oops, none of us know how to farm. Now, everyone starves to death. But it doesn't care. It was for the greater good, right? So once it was obvious academically that this communist, postmodernist stuff failed, they decided, the postmodernists kept going. And they went to what I call all the time cultural Marxism. Marxism was based on, oppressor versus oppressed, but it was based on economic. The bourgeoisie versus the proletariat. People with money, the people without. The working class versus the higher class, right? Well, that failed. And so what they said was, well, why stop there? We could separate people into an infinite amount of groups. Money was what class, or money is what we used before. Why can't we do it with race? Why can't we do it with age? Why can't we do it with gender? Why can't we do it with sexual orientation? Why can't we do it with country of origin? Why can't we do it with ability? Why can't we do it with health? Sound familiar? So they subverted the system. They lost the battle, but they're winning the war because they infiltrated our academia with this. Now we see it in the entertainment industry. This is the public narrative. So much so, if you would have told people 20, 25 years ago that it would be a credible argument, in fact, the mainstream argument, that there is no difference between men and women biologically, you would have thought I was insane. That is literally, not only is it the prevailing argument, go to Twitter right now and say, men can't be women. Banned, just like that. Now that's one of the premier platforms for people getting their voice out there. You can't say the truth that men are different than women, that men can't be women. You can't say that. This is taught in academia. These are the people that say we're the party of science. There's no biological difference. They literally want you to pretend that on average, men aren't more athletic than women. They want you to pretend that. So much so that women will be beat mercilessly in combat sports. Of course, they'll be beat in other sports. But in the combat sports specifically, I mean, we're supposed to sit there and watch a guy just beat on a woman and say, that was perfectly fair. That's how twisted they've become. Because there isn't a truth. Do you see that? There isn't a truth. There's no biological truth. It's your truth. Your truth says, I am a woman. Okay, then you're a woman. Do you see? Do you see how it's... Now, listen to other ways. Remember during the Kavanaugh hearing? What did Cory Booker and Kamala Harris... You listen real close. Go back and listen. Both of them kept saying, it's her truth. Talking about Christine Blasey Ford. Her truth. Not the truth, her truth. And the narrative came up. It didn't matter if Kavanaugh was guilty or not, because Ford thought he was guilty. Therefore, he had to step down because of that. Because that's her truth. And who are we to deny her truth? And this stuff's pervasive everywhere. Why is it? I have people that would tell me, like, look, I know this might not fly with a lot of conservative friends of mine. I have no problem with gay marriage. I supported it. I ran for Congress in the most conservative district in Pennsylvania. I had person after person say, Rob, love what you have to say. I think you're one of the best spoken candidates out there, but I can't endorse you because of your stance on gay marriage. Okay, fair enough. I knew that my constituents didn't want me to hear me say gay marriage is done with. I don't care about it. Two consenting adults want to get married, fine. I have a problem with all this crazy crap. You know, this Buttigieg, some 9-year-old says, oh, I'm gay too, I'm coming out. That indoctrination of our children with sexualism is disgusting. But I don't have a problem with gay marriage. Anyways, what you see is people were telling me, Rob, if Trump gets elected, he's going to lock gay people up. They'll make it illegal to be gay. He's going to be so bad. What are you talking about? Trump's first president flew the LGBT flag at the Republican convention. He appointed the highest political appointee in Grinnell ever, who happened to be gay, was an ambassador, I believe. He's said that we're no longer going to trade with countries that criminalize homosexuality, but somehow the truth doesn't matter. Their truth matters. The individual. To them, to the specific girl screaming at the sky that Trump won, her truth is Trump hates gay people. So it doesn't matter that you could say, but look at all these facts. Nope, he hates gay people. Same with racism. Show me the example of Trump being racist. Well, he's racist. But what? How? Let's look at the facts. Doesn't matter. My truth is he's racist. Kids in cages. Always bad. Here's a picture. Did you see this kid in a cage? It's terrible. Did you see? Well, do you know actually it was the most liberal court circuit in the country, the Ninth Circuit of Appeals, that actually passed the law forcing our government to put kids in cages? Because that's what happened. The most liberal court, they said, oh, no. You can't detain families at the border and have children in cages with adults. Bad things could happen to the children. So you have to house the children separately. So then once the children are housed separately, then with Trump, they're like, oh, you're separating families. But it was the liberals under Obama that did that. They started the policy. If Trump put the kids back in with the parents, the Ninth Circuit would say, no, you violated our decision. So they'll show you kids in cages. Look at this picture. Yeah, that picture's from 2014. That was under Obama. Oh, well, then it's fine. Now, any objective person could look at that and say, well, wait, what do you mean it's fine? But the truth doesn't matter. The facts don't matter. It's their truth. Now, one of the things I said to one of the callers that we were talking about today is the idea of when we're talking about like Republicans winning elections. Well, we'll win the presidency. That's good. You should go out there. It's very important. But the establishment, particularly the establishment Democrats, but make no mistake about it, establishment people on the right as well, they're playing the long game. They're saying, we're going to get into your education system. We're going to control it. We're going to control your entertainment industry. We're going to control your innovation industry, so Silicon Valley. We're going to control your media. And once we control all of that, it don't matter. We'll win every election, not just one. And that's where Andrew Breitbart talks about politics is downstream of culture. That's what he's talking about. We can't give up the fight. We can't allow our children to be indoctrinated like this. Now, how do you best fight that? Do you go out and do you say, we're going to march on the streets, we're going to, scream at people? I don't think so. I think the best way to do it, of course I'm biased, is what I'm doing. And what other people could do, which is the idea of going out there and showing we're not the bigots that they're saying. Their idea of what they're saying is their truth is a lie. And I know you're not going to believe me when I just tell you that, if you're someone who, is falling for that lie. But I will show you over and over again that that's what's going on. So, all right. So I hate to do this, but it is a move I'm trying to make. Let me talk real quick. YouTube, I just got monetized on YouTube. I was more concerned with being able to mobile live stream, which I can't do now. But part of the monetization process is all of my videos are automatically demonetized when I put them up now because they say they're not advertiser friendly. And I think that also means that they're not being advertised like a normal video would. I've done, like, those of you that have followed me on this channel, what have I done that makes me non-advertiser friendly? Other than being a conservative and talking about constitutional values. I'm not a bigot. I encourage open debate. I don't censor anyone. I allow people to have differing views on here. I encourage that we must fight against political violence at all costs and solve things through dialogue and our words, that the best way that we could win the battle against corruption is through informing people. What part of that is not advertiser friendly other than I just have political beliefs they don't like? So it goes to show that they don't care, that they're corrupt, and they're going to keep me down, just like they've kept independent content creators, primarily on the right, but also on the left. They've done that for years. So I'm trying to branch out to other platforms. That's one, why I'm doing this as a podcast and will be in the near future. And I'm switching over to DLive. So if any of my mods are here, if any of you could give a link to my DLive account, and I'll try to put it up as well. If you're watching on Facebook, now eventually my DLive account's going to change names, and it'll just be Normal America at DLive. But for now, it's just Rob Knorr, because I made a mistake. But I put that up. If you're listening on Facebook and you can't see, it's just go to DLive.tv. Okay? And then you just / Rob Knorr. Capital R. So capital R-O-B, capital N-O-E-R-R. Okay? And that will get you to my DLive channel. So in an effort to promote DLive, I'm going to start doing a lot of these live streams, half of it on all the platforms, and then I'm going to switch over to just DLive now. So if you're watching on DLive, we'll keep going. If you're listening on the podcast, it'll keep going, but the podcast isn't live. So, but my friends on YouTube, or that maybe you're on Periscope or on Facebook, I'm going to be switching here just in a couple minutes. So I'll go till 1 a.m., but yeah, I'm going to be switching to DLive. I don't know. So yeah, I'm going to be switching over. If you want to follow me, I'll stay just a couple more minutes here and all the channels. Go to DLive. Again, I'll put the link up there if you're watching on YouTube. If not, it's just DLive.tv/ROB, And go subscribe to me now. Once I get to 200 subscribers on DLive, then I become like a partner or something. And then I think I could then post more types of videos on there. So, yeah, that's what's going to be going on. So I'll leave my YouTube fans here in a minute. I know I'm probably all sorts of bad names and whatever, but trust me, it's for the greater good, because if you're watching me on YouTube right now, or you're watching me on Facebook, they will censor me, and they are doing it, right? So let's get people over there to DLive. If DLive becomes crappy, look, and I'll be honest with you, I don't like the interface as much on DLive. I'm not as familiar with it, but they're not censoring me. So we should all support channels. Get rid of this crappy monopoly that Google Inc. and the mainstream media and the Zuckerbergs of the world have on us being able to talk to each other. So go sign up for DLive. All right, yeah, we'll talk to you later, Jimmy. So, all right, heading out for all of you that are on Periscope, Facebook, and YouTube. I'll be right. Stick with me on DLive. All right. So yeah, I just cut down more than half my audience for those of you that are still on DLive, but I think it's worth it. I mean, what do you all think about that? Does it seem like a mean move? I think that it makes sense. I think that it's something that I need to start trying to do. So, I don't know if I'm still on YouTube. It's saying that I am, but I shouldn't be. Let me check real quick. Forgive me. This is my first time trying to do this, so let me check just to make sure. My computer does not have the power to be doing multiple things. It still says that I'm live. My computer does not have the power to be doing multiple things. So that didn't work. I'm still live. It still says that I'm still live. On YouTube. Well, if you're still here, the 21 people on YouTube still listening, please go over to DLive anyways, and I'm going to try to figure out how to shut this off next time. Don't. I guess I was a liar. I guess you could keep following me on YouTube tonight. But yeah, and then thank you, Nexus Show, for putting on YouTube, for putting my link to my Discord as well. So what I'll do is I've at least set it so I can only see comments on DLive now. So if you want comments, you have to go to DLive. But please, if you go to DLive, please like and subscribe. The other thing I want to say is, and I know this is terrible, please, I could really use financial donations. The bigger donations at this point, though, would be non-financial, would be just getting my name out there. So the first thing you could do is talk about other people about my videos, share links to them if you like them, etc. But if you're going to donate to me, there's links to my Patreon, links to PayPal. You can give super chats on YouTube, and you can give lemons on DLive. Unfortunately, because of the way my chats worked up until someone helps me, I can't figure out who super chatted me or gives me lemons while I'm doing this, because it's just weird, the setup I have here. So, if anyone donated to me, thank you so much. Sorry I didn't see it to call it out. Plus, I just run my mouth so much. So, yeah, moving on then with, please subscribe to me. We got that done with. All right. So, yeah, so talking about Cenk, check that movie, or that video I did earlier today about Cenk. But you see kind of the hypocrisy of the Democrats. Now, let's talk about what we were going to get to, the third topic we were going to have on the panel, which was the implosion of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is based on two mindsets right now. And that is, one, the mindset of the establishment Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama type class, which is, despite what you may have been told, the Democrats actually are the party of the extremely wealthy. In fact, when we look at the richest Americans, their donations went in large portion to the Democratic Party over the Republican Party. That was especially true of Hillary versus Trump, because they knew Hillary was someone they could buy off. Hillary's saying all the right things to the progressives, but she's in the pocket of these wealthy people. She's one of them, right? So you have that sort of establishment, aristocracy, wealthy oligarch section of the Democratic Party, the wealthiest of the people in this country. Then you have the wing of the party, the Bernie wing. And that wing of the party doesn't just want those people to cease to exist, at least not to die, but to not have that financial wealth, but they think they're immoral. Now that can't coexist. The only reason that it's been able to coexist is the same way that all of this identity politics has been able to coexist. Now what they call this is called intersectionality. But we were talking about cultural Marxism and the idea of, well, you could divide people based on race, you could divide people based on sexuality, etc. Intersectionality is the idea of this. They started to see this problem. And the problem was this. Women would be like, yeah, you're a man and I'm a woman. Men are always oppressors and women are always the oppressed. And we live in a patriarchy and this is terrible. And then a black man would come along and he would say, yeah, we live in a racist society. White people are oppressors. Black are oppressed. It's all about racism. But the white woman would say, yeah, but you're a man, so you're oppressing me. And the black man would say, yeah, but you're white and you're oppressing me. Well, that infighting's not good. And by the way, it gets way worse than that because a lot of these groups, on average, don't really jive with each other's issues. For example, if you're gay and you think I'm oppressed because I'm a member of the LGBT community, right? And so you're in this oppressed, the Democrat camp. That's what they say. You have to be a Democrat if you're LGBT. That's what they say. You have to claim the victimhood. But then also in there is Islam. Because Christianity's oppressor, Islam's oppressed. Now, if you're gay, you're like, wait a minute. If I was in the countries that these people controlled, they'd throw me off a building and kill me. Shh. Don't say that. You got to be allies. And so they find that's what intersectionality is. The idea that you all come together. If you've got any part of you that's oppressed, you come together against the cartoon caricature of the oppressor. So that would be white, wealthy, able-bodied, married, Christian, American, blah, blah, blah. Go down the list. That person, that's the avatar of their hate. That's the worst, the evil person. Now, it just so happens Donald Trump kind of checks all the right boxes. So how have they stood together? How have we had the Bernie Sanders wing stand with the Hillary Clinton wing or the Mike Bloomberg wing? It's only been one thing. Their intense, irrational hatred of Donald Trump and his supporters and flyover country and rural America and anyone who's a conservative, etc. Thank you, Gizmo. I appreciate it. Yeah. Support Rob. Woo! No, I really do. I appreciate it. And if you're on DLive now, please click to follow me. I'd really appreciate it. Trying to get to that 200 mark. So that's how, when you look at it, if you're if you weren't in the United States and you didn't have a TV, right? And you didn't see what's going on in the US and you just turned on the debates now. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. So the two people in the debates that are winning, you got this billionaire guy, Bloomberg, that's worth way more than Trump. And then you got this guy that's saying people that are rich are immoral. How are they on the same stage? Like, what brings these two together in one party? In fact, it seems like in almost every issue, they're exactly the opposite. Like, Bloomberg's got all these NDAs with women, where he's told offensive jokes or inappropriately groped women or something. We don't know exactly what they're for. Isn't that the antithesis of everything the Me Too movement and the Bernie supporters are for? How are these people coalescing? And you're like, well, it's because they don't like the other guy. And so the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But you can't run a country, let alone a party like that. I mean, that's nonsense. And so now you're starting to see, it was just Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. And what did I tell everyone about Bloomberg? I said, look, I was reading, Bloomberg's got really smart people around him. Why? Because he's paying them exorbitant amounts of money. So when you see someone like Tom Steyer, who's a billionaire, and he's out there doing this political campaign, he's still, despite being a billionaire, on a budget. Bloomberg has no budget, basically. So he's overpaying the crap. He's getting the best of the best. And the people around Bloomberg were absolutely correct. They're like, dude, you're not a policy guy. In fact, you're basically a Republican. So your policies, you're going to lose. The more your history's brought up, the more your policies are brought up, you're going to lose. Here's your message. Donald Trump sucks. That's all you say. Repeat it over and over. We're going to go out there. We're going to pay people to just say, I support Bloomberg. Trump sucks. Trump sucks. Trump sucks. Trump sucks. That's it. That's all the guy has. And so the Democratic Party now finds themselves in a situation where they're imploding. And this was predictable. We've seen cracks in the veneer. Look on college campuses. All these faculty, all these administrators for years, they fed the beast. They fed the mob. Yes, the outrage mob. Guilty until proven innocent. Safe spaces. All that crap. No such thing as truth. It's my truth. I'm special. I'm a victim. They fed it because it was directed at the wrong people. Yeah, get those evil conservatives. Get those evil people. Those stupid rural people that don't go to universities. Yep, get them. Then all of a sudden, guess what? They started to turn on them. Now they don't know what to do. Go back and watch the footage from Evergreen University. Go back and watch the girl at Yale screaming at the professor because he said maybe we shouldn't kick people out of Yale because they dressed up as a cowboy or an Indian for Halloween. This is my home. I need my safe space. Screaming at this guy. They don't know how to handle it. They're like, it was funny. It was funny when it was directed at the others. Yes, then it was good. Now it's turning on them. And is exactly what's happening with the Democratic Party. I said it in 2016. See, the story's been lost, but when Bernie at the DNC convention, when it was clear that he got screwed over, there was like a lot of anger from Bernie supporters outside the convention. They were burning American flags. They were shoving each other. The cops got called in. Sarah Silverman got on stage because Bernie supporters inside the DNC were booing so much, and she told them basically to be quiet and suck it up, and they needed to get on board with Hillary. How progressive of her, right? Now, all the Democrats were saying, this is outrageous. Can you believe Bernie supporters are doing this? That's what the people in the DNC were saying. But then when I was on blogs showing people like, okay, let's look at what Bernie supporters did at all these Republican events. They had no problem with that. They never spoke up about that. It was funny when people were rushing the stage when Trump was up there. It was funny. Now when they're doing it to Bernie, not so funny, is it, Bernie? And that's what's happening. Now, Bernie thinks he's impervious to this. He's not. Because let me tell you, if he gets screwed out of this, which he may, and I'll talk about my predictions here. If he gets screwed out, if he thinks another lake house and he'll be okay is going to work, no. Many of his supporters, rightfully so, many of them are furious. I definitely think Bernie supporters have the right to be furious after 2016 and now. I do. I think they have the right to be furious. And not all of them are insane maniacs. There's not. But there's a group of them that are going to act violently with their fury. And they're not going to forgive Bernie again. Even the rational ones won't. They'll say, you know what, Bernie? Fool me once, shame on you. They got it right that time. So that's what we're going to see. Now, what's my prediction? I don't think Bernie will get the nomination. I could be totally wrong. He is clearly and obviously not just the front runner at this point, but the ideological heart of the establishment Democratic Party right now. And by that, I mean what the majority of voters want on their side. I don't think independents will like it. I don't think moderates will like it. But as far as the primaries are about, where the heart of the party's at. So that's why you always see in both Republican and Democrats. In the primaries, if you're a Republican, you run to the right. I'm in reverse mode here. And then once the general election comes around, you have to say, oh, no, I'm not as right-wing as I said. If you're a Democrat, you run to the left. Then when the general comes around, you say, oh, no, I'm not as left-wing as I said. That's why it would be funny, even though it'd be despicable for Bloomberg to buy the election. It'd be funny to see him go from basically his, legal immigration, no big deal, blah, 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 all this SJW crap that he's spewing now. And then in the general election, be like, I just said that to get elected. Screw those Democratic voters. That crap happens on both sides, though. Don't be mistaken. So what we're going to see, that's Bernie, by all rights, should probably be the nominee. Now, will he win? I don't think so, but I don't know. I'm not going to give the Democrats the same mistake they gave us, which was hubris going into the 2016 election. Oh, Trump doesn't stand a chance. Look, there is populism on the left and right, rightfully so. Trump's got the populism on the right. Bernie's got it on the left. Don't underestimate the enthusiasm that he brings out in supporters. Can it beat Trump? I don't know. There will also be a lot of corruption going against Trump as well. So we'll see. But I don't think Bernie will be the nominee. Maybe I'll be wrong. I'm not betting money on it or anything. I think you'll see someone come out of the woodworks. I think you'll see Michelle Obama or Hillary Clinton. That's my guess. I think they tried it with Biden. That was a loser. They tried it with Bloomberg. That's going to be a loser. There's still going to be a lot of support behind Bloomberg. But anyone who watched that debate, devastating. Just devastating. He looked like a guy to me that was like, oh man, I'm worth what? 60 billion? I could have just bought an island and been sipping pina coladas for the rest of my life. But instead I'm getting screamed at by all these people on stage. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a Michelle Obama, a Bernie Sanders, or someone like that come out. Hey, can anyone tell me, am I still on YouTube? Just real quick. So we'll see. But that's my feeling on it. Listen, let me talk to my friends on the left for a second. And this is something, by the way, I'll bring it back to the Patriot Panel tonight. So the one caller calls in and says, let me actually, before I... yeah, why not? We'll talk about this first. Listen, I take callers on my show sometimes too. Yeah, I'll talk about immigration in a minute. I take callers on my show as well. Everyone that called in tonight, I thought had awesome points. But you can't go for like 20 minutes. Like, it's already a lot to have 6 people on a panel. It's a lot to get everyone's opinion. But then if you got an hour and a half show and one caller takes 20 minutes and no one says anything in response to that, that's like a third of your show with 2 callers that were, I think, 35 minutes between the 2 of them with basically no interaction with anyone on the panel. That's a third of your show. And then, I got people texting me like, dude, I tried to call in. I can't get a word in. And I'm like, sorry. Like 20 people try to call in and we can only get to 2. Not that their points weren't great. They were. But that might be a situation. If you have something that's going to take you 20 minutes to say, maybe email me and then I'll get you on the show as a partner. And then you can talk all you want. I'm still on YouTube. Okay. That's not to say, oh, those people. No, I'm not saying that at all. I thought they had excellent points. I'm just saying it's really tough. Like, it's really tough to draw that fine line of, you don't want to cut someone off. They're making great points. But on the other hand, you want to be fair to everyone else in the audience. And, yeah, I thought the first caller was great as well. But it was 20 minutes. And they were speaking on, kind of the idea of the CFR and the Georgia Guidestones and the law of admiralty and stuff like that. I don't know about the admiralty stuff. I'm not even going to pretend. But yeah, I get the Georgia Guidestones and the CFR, and it is all corrupt. And again, what he's talking about there, this idea that there's like foreign influence on the people that run our government, and it's like these shady organizations like the Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Group. Yeah, I agree. But there's a way to not have to get into the really depths of what's going on there to start to get people interested in this. And that is this. We could easily prove that foreign money influences our politicians all the time. In fact, again, I know Dib didn't want me to talk about this again, but go back to the Russia stuff. What was Paul Manafort arrested for initially? Failing to register as a foreign lobbyist. He worked with 2 groups, Mercury LLC. This is all in Mueller's documents. Mercury LLC and the Podesta Group. Mercury LLC is a Republican lobbying firm. Podesta Group, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, Democrat lobbying firm. This was in 2013. Who were they lobbying to? Like, they were taking money from foreign people and lobbying politicians. Who were the politicians they were lobbying? Well, you didn't hear that story, did you? That's because it was the Secretary of State and others. Who was the Secretary of State? Oh, that's right, Hillary Clinton. Pay for play, all that crap. That's what was going on. And we constantly see that. I talked about this in the impeachment stuff. How over and over we see politicians vote to give money to these foreign governments. And then those foreign governments end up paying the family members of these politicians huge sums of money, like Hunter Biden got, like John Kerry's son got. It's a racket. China is way more guilty and way more involved with this than Russia. And so, yeah, the caller's right on that deeper level as well. Yes, how can you trust people that are involved on the Council on Foreign Relations that are basically, Soros funded, all of these people like Rothschilds, all these that are funding these organizations that set up the CIA. The Council on Foreign Relations set up the CIA. They did. And it is worth talking about, and it's something that I should talk about more, and I will start talking about more. But my interest right now is trying to tell normal, everyday people, and they understand just like, look, dude, your taxpayer gets sent to their country, and then they pay the charity or the family member, etc., of the politician that voted to send over that money. That's easy for people to wrap their head around. When you start talking about Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg Group, CFR, Georgia Guidestones, it gets a little more murky. That's not to say that that's not important to talk about. But that's where I'm at. Someone says AIPAC. Yeah, AIPAC's a great example. And that's one of the things you can give to a lot of the... Look, there are a lot of journalists on the left that didn't buy into the Russia hoax. Aaron Mattei, Michael Tracy, Glenn Greenwald, Jimmy Dore. Now, these are people that hate Trump and want to see Trump out. I've been calling them out on Twitter now because they're getting behind Bernie and Tulsi. But Bernie and Tulsi both bought in to the Russia collusion hoax when it benefited Bernie and Tulsi. Bernie's one of the biggest purveyors of it. Now that it's blowing back on him, all of a sudden it's this is outrageous. But it was predictable to do so. So I'm like talking to these journalists on Twitter like, hey man, where's your ideological consistency with that? But one of the things they're talking about today, this was a big story. If Bernie says that Fidel Castro's policies were okay, maybe that's not the best thing. But did Fidel Castro have more of an influence than AIPAC? Probably not. Now, I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but I see the point. Look, I even defended, I can't remember which one it was. I think it was DLive, when she said it's all about the Benjamins, talking about AIPAC, and the Ben Shapiros of the world were like, anti-Semitism. I said, no, not necessarily. Maybe she's just saying, I'm tired of foreign governments lobbying our government to get us into disastrous situations. Now, having said that, my take on Israel is very complicated. I'm not one of these people that think they're always wrong and they're responsible for all the ills of the world, or they're always right and we have to defend them. I think it's more complicated than that. I think Iran sucks many times. I think Israel sucks many times. I think sometimes Iran has the right to be upset by the actions of Israel. I think Israel has the right to be upset by the actions of Iran sometimes. It's complicated. It's not a movie. It's not one good guy, one bad guy. There's shadiness all around. So, for example, when Trump wanted to move the embassy to Jerusalem, fine with that. The argument that was given by these people that talk about, like, particularly on the left, that talk about hating Israel and AIPAC was, that's so horrible for Trump to do that because it's going to cause death and violence and people will flip out. Okay, well, if moving a building to a different city causes people to flip out and kill people, you know who the bad people are? The people flipping out and killing people over a building. It's their fault. But on the other hand, they're totally, we are influenced by Israel to get involved in these situations in places like Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the Middle East all the time. We have no business being over there. So, that's what, yeah, I've watched the movie Zeitgeist, I have. It was a while ago, but, I missed what someone says. I'm going to go over it with something with me. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, that's my feelings on kind of that deep dive stuff. But yeah, the idea of foreign influence, absolutely, without a doubt, it's disgusting. I mean, you see it in our campuses. You know how much Chinese money goes into our college campuses? You see it in Hollywood. You know how much Chinese money goes into Hollywood? Look at the NBA. Now, I know this doesn't seem like a big issue to people, but I'm telling you, politics is downstream of culture. You don't think the NBA has a huge influence over millions of people in this country and how they think? It does. Predominantly young people, but it does. That's why they pay basketball athletes so much money to advertise. Because you as an individual might say, I ain't going to buy a pair of shoes because LeBron James told me to. But guess what? They're not spending that money because they're stupid. They're spending that money because years and years of patterns and research have told them that it is beneficial for sales for them to pay celebrity endorsers. So when we have the NBA coming out, and the official narrative coming out of the NBA from all the big stars is the police in this country are racist, gun rights are stupid, Trump's evil, Trump's a racist. But at the same time, but we're totally behind the Chinese government when it comes to cracking down on the Hong Kong protesters. That has influence. Listen, I could forgive someone in my position, even though not me, I wouldn't do it. But I could forgive someone like me, living paycheck to paycheck, whatever. China starts throwing millions and billions of dollars at you. Maybe you change your tune. Maybe you're willing to see the other side of the issue. But LeBron James, one of the wealthiest people in the world, in the history of the world, and what? For a few more dollars, you got to sell out your personal integrity? Hope it was worth it, dude. You know? That, it's everywhere. Look at Hollywood. I mean, honest to goodness. Like, and it's so funny. It goes back to that idea of cultural Marxism. Now, we hear all the time, there weren't enough black people nominated for Academy Awards. Hollywood's racist, blah, blah, blah. But they don't talk about themselves that way. Like, so the very people that make these it's just like they did with, Weinstein just got charged today. Or found guilty. Weinstein and his crew was telling us how great feminists they were. Meanwhile, their industry is exploiting women, literally, sexually, more than almost any other industry. But their big issue was, you in rural America, you're exploiting women. They tell us how racist we are. One of the reasons that you see movies like the Transformers that are big in China make huge amounts of money in China. Do you ever notice there's not a lot of prominent black people in them? You want to know why? Because China don't really care for black actors. They don't do as well. So even in movies where they're in them, they're not on the cover, on the movie poster, things like that. But Hollywood's willing to capitulate to China on that. Now, they'll tell you in the United States that you're racist for any bajillion of things. But they are actively making... Can you imagine? Like, if I sit down to make a movie, I'm going to say, here are the characters, who are the best actors for these characters? Maybe skin color or race plays into one of the aspects of one of the characters. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just, I need someone who's a military person. Okay, be white or black, who's the best actor? Who I have envisioned? I'm not going to say, I refuse to cast someone of a certain race because I'm afraid it'll hurt my bottom line in China. But I'm not a racist. But those people doing that, they call you a racist. Academia, the same crap. Silicon Valley, same crap. Diversity is pushed in the West. Yeah. But that's because they understand. The globalists understand that the biggest impediment to stopping globalism is the middle class in the United States and in the West in general, places like the UK, Europe, etc. So they're trying to wipe out the middle class. And I talk about this a lot. What do they want? They want a return to feudalism. The dream of the globalist is San Francisco. It is LA. They want a society where they live on castles at the top of the hill with extravagant wealth, and everyone else is a serf below them. Now, they'll give you, if you're one of those serfs, they'll give you food. They'll throw you shelter and food. Yeah. But don't you dare criticize them. In fact, you have to worship those people in those castles. And if you don't, well, then maybe you don't eat this week. Just like the feudal lords of the past. That's what they want. Now, what stands in your way of that? Self-sufficient people. People that are following the American ideal of personal responsibility and personal freedom. Watch my promo video that's on the top of my channel where I talk all about this. The U.S. is the greatest country in the world because it was founded on the ideals of personal freedom and personal responsibility. The globalists want the antithesis of that. No. Rely on them. Rely on them. Rely on their government. And then, no more middle class. And then you can do what you want. That's what they want. When you talk about things like the Georgia Guidestones, the idea behind that is that the wealthy and the elite, there was this guy, Malthus, who talked about this way back in the 19th century, I believe 19th century, talked about overpopulation. And so they said, what we need to do is have a slow, controlled depopulation now, whether it be through fertility rate reduction, through wars that led to people dying, etc. That's kind of what the Georgia Guidestones is going off, that we need a controlled population of the elite. So whether you believe that or you just believe, I don't know if I believe that, but I do believe without a doubt that these globalists want a population that is totally subservient to them and has no free will or no personal responsibility. That's absolutely what they want. Just look at how they run their companies. Go to Google. Is free thinking allowed at Google? You allowed to express an honest opinion at Google? Nope. You want to keep getting paid? You want to keep eating? Be able to afford that mortgage? Better shut your mouth then. That's what they want. That's how they want the world to run. That's obvious. Yeah, and then, some people are saying, is that what the coronavirus is doing, depopulating us? Maybe. We'll see. I mean, certainly it would need to uptick very seriously. I mean, you would need to be talking about hundreds of millions of deaths. Could it happen? Maybe. I don't see proof of it, but it could happen. But that's what this is about. You could look at it in all of these levels. Well, it's depopulation. Well, it's, Luciferian. Well, all that stuff could be true. I guess I'm dealing on one of the more shallow levels. But there's a reason for it. It's not that I don't understand or that I haven't heard a lot of these arguments. It's that until we could get, the best way to convince people of the corruption is to show them at a level they could understand. So that's what I try to do. But yeah, that's what's going on. So the idea of diversity. There is truth to the argument that diversity is a good thing. The problem is that it's misapplied. So diversity is important because we're talking about diversity of thought, diversity of action. So, for example, take an example that they use all the time. You don't want one strain of wheat, right? You want diverse crops, diverse strains of wheat. Because if you just have one strain of wheat and then a blight comes along, it will wipe out all of the wheat. So you want diversity. It's part of the way that evolution works as well. It's why inbreeding's ineffective, because you're not diversifying your genetics as much. So diverse genetics, right? The idea, I'm not talking amongst races. I just mean quite literally, you can't replicate genetic, I'm not going to claim to be a biologist, so I'll let that one go. But, so when we're talking human beings, what are we talking about? What makes you a human? It's your thoughts, it's your actions. Not how you look, right? Not who you're attracted to, or right? Not where you're from. All of that's irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. Think of all of the people in history, all the people that you respect in your life, whether it be historical figures, whether it be people connected in your life. It's not like that my mom was great. She was white. What? No, it's the things your mom did, right? Her beliefs. She was hardworking. She cared so much for people. That type of stuff. That's diversity that matters. Diversity of skill set. You're starting a community. You don't want just 100% of people that are plumbers. Who's going to be the carpenter? That sort of diversity is good. But that's thoughts, actions. So how do we get 100 people in a room. Let's say we're in college. We have a class. And we want this class to have the best possible discussion, have maximize the amount of learning that goes on. That means, just like here, like say we have a panel here. If we have 100 people and we all agree on everything, our ability to come up with new thoughts, strengthen our current thoughts, is hampered because we don't have opposition. We don't have people that are thinking in a different way. So it would behoove us to have people that are thinking in a different way. That diversity is a strength. Now, how do we get there? How do we get to people with different thoughts? There's all kinds of ways. Maybe if we both come from different backgrounds, two people, one person comes from the city and is wealthy, one person comes from the country and is poor, hey, there's a chance they have different ideas. But that's not the end goal. The coming from a different place isn't the diversity that matters. It only matters as a potential tool to get us to the diversity that matters, which is the diversity of thought and action. So here's what happens. They say diversity, diversity, diversity. And they get a room and they say, see, we got a black person and a brown person and, a tan person and a ginger. Diversity! But they all think exactly the same. That's not diversity. They stop at the superficial level where diversity means nothing at all. It's the diversity of thought that matters. Yes, there is a potential that people that look different will ultimately have diverse thoughts, but not necessarily. And what these people that push diversity do, the cultural Marxists, right? They say, oh, we want people to look like a rainbow. We want people from all these different places. But what's the number one rule? And I say this all the time when talking about cultural Marxism, right? The more victimhood you have, the better. Oh, if you're black, you're not as much of a victim as a black woman, who's not as much as a victim as a black female lesbian, who's not as much of a victim as a black female lesbian Muslim, who's not as much a victim as a black woman female lesbian Muslim disabled person, right? But none of those victimhood points matter unless the very number one tippy top rule, you have to agree in totality with them. And if you don't, and you're in one of those victimhood groups, you actually get attacked more than the oppressor groups. So for example, I'm white. Yeah, I get crap for being white. I'm an oppressor, blah, blah, blah. But you know who gets more crap? Kanye. Why? Because he's supposedly someone in the oppressed group, or Candace Owens or whoever. They're in that oppressed group, and they say, no, I don't want to be looked at as oppressed. Well, that screws the whole diversity narrative up, doesn't it? So they want a bunch of people from all these diverse groups, but they all have to think alike. That's the opposite of diversity. Is diversity code for anti-white? Yes, but it's more than that. Diversity is also code for anti-Christian. Diversity is also code for anti-American. Diversity is code for anti-male. It's cultural Marxism. That's what it is. White people have been deemed the oppressor. Therefore, when we say diversity, we're saying we want less of the oppressor. So when we're talking about diversity in race, yes, it largely comes out to just mean anti-white. But when we're talking about diversity in gender, who's the oppressor in gender? Males. So diversity when we're talking about gender is anti-male. What about countries? United States is the oppressor. So the diversity when it comes to countries, we're talking anti-American. It's a simplification, but yes, that's ultimately true. That's what it is. Now, I don't care. Don't make the mistake of saying, oh, so they're playing these identity politics games. They're playing these games with the idea of diversity, so we'll play them too. That's a mistake. I despise the white identitarians. I despise the people that say, oh, we're superior and screw everyone else. We're going to play based on our identity politics. I don't like that either. But you can see it in practice, like you're saying there. There's no call for diversity in Africa. Oh, leave more white people in. Leave more European ancestral people in. That call's not there. And what this ultimately is, it ultimately shows a bigotry. And let me explain something, right? Real quick. I know a lot of people are like, take affirmative action. That's one small part of this. And they'll say, well, it screws over Asians and it screws over white people. That's true. But it also screws over the people that they claim to be helping. When I was in the debate community, you have to understand, I'm just like some wannabe redneck, listen to metal music. I used to go in and wear Slayer t-shirts while I was debating, had a beard down to here, long hair sometimes. And I got good at debate, and almost everyone in the debate community is super left-wing. And once you get to the higher levels, they've all gone to most of them have gone to private schools, wealthy schools. They've been debating all through high school. I was one of the only people to qualify for the national debate tournament. There might be one a year that never had high school debate experience. So I never had high school. I went to a rural school, never did debate. All of a sudden I'm in there. I got 4 years to compete with these people that have been doing it at private schools for 12 years. But I did pretty good. And I remember one time someone who meant well, they told me, you know, if you just cleaned up, if you trimmed up, and if you wore nice clothes, and if you acted in a certain way, you could be one of us. And they would say they felt bad for me because, you know, my situation. And I would tell them, no, I'm good. I don't need, you know, I don't need your help. I would rather be hated than pitied. You know, George W. Bush probably would have hated me. I've been like, I think your foreign regime change wars are crap, and blah, 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 blah. Barack Obama would have probably pitied me. Oh, poor Rob. Grew up in a poor family, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. No. I went into the debate doing the Ric Flair. Woo! Yeah, not quite. You know, so I feel bad for those groups too, right? Oh, you African. In Africa. No. You've just been victims throughout the entire history of the world. So, no, diversity's not for you. Yes, that obviously shows a contempt and a hatred for the European countries. It does. But it also shows a pity for those African countries. And to me, that's almost worse. I'd rather someone just come to my face and be like, I hate you, than to say, oh, poor precious Rob. It's okay. I can't get mad at you. You're just a victim. The world was out to get you. No. You're special. The rules don't apply to you, Rob. You're special. You need help. How do these people take this crap? I mean, it's insufferable. It really does. It blows my mind. So, yeah, that's kind of my take on, you know, the whole diversity thing. So how did we get on this from tonight? Well, you know, talking about so here's what I wanted to say too about this color. And so, me and American Joe seemingly have a different take. I will get him to come around to my way of thinking. If you watch my show a lot, I say all the time, I talk about my friends on the left. That's literal and figurative. I literally have a ton of left-leaning friends. I do. My wife's a registered Democrat, though she's infuriated with the party. The guy that ran my campaign, Tom, registered Democrat. A lot of the friends I made in the debate community at university, registered Democrats. I think that we need to seek allies from all aisles of the political spectrum. This is something that when I talk to the Republicans that I'm trying to get across to them. Now, let me tell you, I have no formal education in politics or anything of that nature. But I say things that seem like revolutionary ideas, and I don't know why. To me, it just seems like common sense. Let's say you're a used car salesman, right? And you got some piece of crap car that you're just trying to sell whoever walks in. You're not going to be bigoted. Bigoted's not even the word. You're not going to be angry to certain people based on things. Like, for example, I'm a Steelers fan. So I'm a used car salesman. I'm a Steelers fan. In walks a guy wearing a Baltimore Ravens hat. Am I going to be like, get out of here, man. Baltimore Ravens, they suck. You suck, man. By the way, you want to buy this car? The guy's going to be like, no. You could jest. You'd be like, I hate the Ravens, but you seem like a good guy, right? Whatever. Say what you will about Donald Trump. Have you heard him making fun of the voters of the Democratic Party? I haven't. Yeah, I hear that constantly from the establishment about Trump supporters. 10-toothed racist, says Rick Wilson on CNN while Don Lemon laughs. Can't read a map, can't read, they're all illiterate. They want to stop the brown horde. Racist, deplorables, clinging to their guns and Bibles. Now, if you were said that, if you're one of those people that were the target of that attack, you ever going to vote Democrat? You ever going to support the people that called you that? Of course not. Why should we return the favor? I don't like AOC. I don't like Bernie. I don't like Hillary or Bloomberg. I don't like Pelosi or Chuck Schumer. I'll call them out. I think they're corrupt. But I'm not going to bag on the Bernie voter until they do something directly towards me, that individual. I'm not here. I'm concerned about my country. I'm concerned about corruption. I'm concerned about the values that I've seen slipping away. I'm concerned about being a generation that let this great American experiment falter. It's about more than me just saying, screw you, you're on the other team. I have no interest in that. I feel like that sometimes, I do. But then I remind myself, there's literally stakes here. It's not just a game. So if Bernie supporters are starting to wake up, and not all of them, I get it, I know what people say, but maybe a handful, maybe more, are starting to wake up to the corruption, why wouldn't I say, hey man, I tried to tell you, but yes, now that you see the corruption, does that mean you have to vote for Donald Trump? No, but we could still be allies in wanting this corruption to end. We'll debate the socialism stuff later. Number one, let's get rid of the corruption. Let's get people in there that actually are trying to help people. Then we can debate whether the socialism stuff's a good idea. It's not, but... And I see this, like, not only is it better to live your life that way, because you're going to drive yourself crazy. I know people like this. I can't have a Democrat friend. I can't watch any movie with people in it that, are bashing Trump. I can't use any product that's sponsored by people that are bashing Trump. It's like, dude, you're going to go nuts. Will there be a civil war? Maybe. I'm trying to stop that. Is it futile? Probably. But I don't care. That's why I do this channel. That's why I try to talk to normal people on all sides of the aisle. And like I was saying, I'm confident in the truth. I don't need to run away from people that disagree with me because I think I have the right side on most issues. Does that mean I'm always right? No. And I've had people on the left convince me of things. But it's still beneficial, I think, to reach out to people and get allies all across the spectrum. We can't afford to say only this type of person is a patriot. I don't think so. That's my feeling. That's what I try to do. My motto, and I keep forgetting to bring one of my cards for when I ran for office. Liberty, civility, responsibility. That was my motto. Civility? And I had people tell me, we want a fighter. Have you seen me in my channel? Have you seen me screaming my head off about the FBI? You don't think I'd be a fighter? Of course I would. But there's a way to be civil to people that disagree with me as well. Not the corrupt people running the show. I'm not talking about them. I tell the Republican Party, I say this all the time. I'm in Pennsylvania. What are we doing in inner city Pittsburgh and Philly? For those of you that aren't in Pennsylvania, basically Erie, Philadelphia, and Pennsylvania control the entire state. There's this huge landmass in the center where I'm at. When it comes to statewide elections and stuff like that, we have no say. Because those urban areas have such a high population. So, what are we doing to go into those areas? And people say, well, you won't get many votes there. Black people don't like Trump, so, What? Yeah, because we're never talking to them. Would you like someone who totally ignores? What if you're in the inner city? What are your options right now? You got the Democratic Party that only talks to you every 4 years or 2 years during an election, and then they just screw you over and ignore you. And they even treat you like a child and treat you only based on your race. And then you have the Republican Party that's basically just not talking to you. I say, my party, what I want it to be, is the party that treats people based on the content of their character. I don't care what your skin color is. I'll go into inner city Philly and talk to you. And guess what? If I go in and they send me in there, and I'm a great talker. I think I'm a great debater. I think I'm a great talker. I'm genuine. I'm authentic. I understand that these people have been screwed over in a lot of ways. I sympathize with that. If you sent me in there, you know how many votes I would gain percentage-wise for the Republicans in Pennsylvania? Not many. That's how many. And I think I'm good. 1% maybe? Maybe not even. But guess what? I'll be there next year. Then I'll be there the year after that. Then I'll be there the year after that. And maybe, just maybe, people will start to realize, not because of just my words, but because of my actions, and because of the actions of the people that want to represent them. Hey, we're not going to just throw you under the bus because you didn't vote for us. We meant what we said. We're not going to treat you like a victim. We're not going to treat you like a token. We think you're an individual, just like I'm an individual. You're not just a skin color. So, we'll be here. And eventually you start to make inroads. It's the same with young people. We gave up the cultural war. Conservative values, young people, what? We don't talk to them. I talk to people like, young people are all dumb, millennials, blah, 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 blah. Maybe you feel like that. Do you think you're going to convince them to come to your side with that? I don't. But that's fine. I'm not begrudging people could do what they want. They can. I'm just saying, how do you feel when the elites tell you you're garbage, you're a deplorable? You don't think, maybe I'll vote for them. And I think that we need a coalition in this country of people of all diverse ideas from all sides of the political spectrum saying enough is enough. We're tired of this corruption. We're tired of normal Americans not having a voice. So, if we have a troll, please, mods, don't censor them. Welcome, troll, if you're on there. For those of you new podcasts, you can't see the chat. We could have a troll. Oh, we have a Hong Kong. Yeah, yes. Why not? 3D is awesome. Send me a lot of good stuff on the coronavirus, which I did watch. By the way, Milo, if you're still in here, I did watch your videos that you sent me. And I'll talk about that briefly. Why not? I got 8 minutes. So, Milo... By the way, Milo was in here, Dib was in here, Big Sky Crypto I saw earlier. All of them were Patreon donators to me. Preacher that's in here is someone who donated all sorts of great stuff to me. Flag, helped me with videos, sends me a lot of information, lets me beat him at the robot rap battle thing when we play it. So yeah, thank you to all of you that support me. Hopefully when I end this, I'll see that I got a ton of lemons. Now I'd be more impressed if I got some subscribers. That'd be great on my DLive. But I'm sorry if I don't get to everything everyone sends me as far as articles and videos, but I do try to watch a lot of it. Milo, I don't know if he's still in here, sent me a video. Kevin Shipp, I believe was the guy's name, who was a former CIA person, and he talks about kind of the deep state, but the difference between the shadow government and the deep state. Right? And it is worth pointing out because oftentimes I'm just saying the deep state when I'm talking about the shadow government. So if I could try to break down what the difference is, the shadow government is your CIA, your FBI, all of those organizations plus the media. It's all the official kind of entities that are involved in kind of he says their currency is secrecy, right? And so you can't say anything about them or anything like that. The deep state is the group that's kind of financing and backing them. So you have like oligarchs, like your Soros type people, other groups like that, your lobbyists, your military industrial complex, all of that stuff. And he's focusing, this is Kevin Shipp, he's a whistleblower, he's focusing on the shadow government, like the CIA predominantly is what he's focusing on. And he's right when he talks about it. I mean, it's a great lesson. Maybe I'll do a little video just in this video, that Milo sent me, which is the idea that the shadow government, right, it was all set up in order to usurp the power of president. So even if, like, Obama wanted to stop all of the crazy stuff that the CIA, FBI, NSA, all these groups were doing, he couldn't. Because there are literally laws, executive orders that have been passed that says that they're able to just say, yeah, you don't have access to any of that information. Even the president of the United States. Now, these laws were passed, they weren't laws that were passed by Congress. These were executive orders. And even, Hoover, I think, said that he regretted the creation of the CIA. So, I mean, these places, the corruption that occurs there, the lady that was on our panel for Veterans for Truth, I mean, she's right to say the Founding Fathers intended local governments and state governments to be far more important than the federal government. And so therefore, we should get more fired up about that type of stuff than the presidential election. And she's right in many ways. But the problem is, it's gone so far off the rails and we're no longer a constitutional republic. The Constitution's just been ignored because of this corruption of the shadow government and being backed by the deep state that you kind of need to stop that corruption at the top level before we could get back to saying, yes, the local level is more important. No. Yeah, I'm sorry I missed all the fun troll stuff. So, but yeah, good stuff like that people send me that's fantastic. And yeah, our friend here from the Hong Kong sent me a lot of stuff about the coronavirus, which I did check out. Um, I don't, because I'm not an expert, it's not something that I was looking at as much. I don't have kind of a breadth of knowledge that I have on other issues with that, but yeah, that's what's going on. All right, so we got 4 minutes left, so it won't be time for calls tonight. So yeah, if you're listening on podcasts, please follow me on DLive and on YouTube. On DLive, I'm just Rob, capital R, R-O-B, capital N-O-E-R-R, on DLive.tv. For the rest of you that are following me right now on DLive, follow me on YouTube as well. One of the things, the benefit of DLive, the big benefit is I'm not going to be censored, unlike YouTube. The downside of DLive is currently, maybe this changes once I get 200 subscribers, but I don't know how to put my non-live videos on here and have them stay like more than a week or two. And that's not going to be good because I'm going to be running for Congress. So you're going to start to see me put out videos like, here is my healthcare plan. If I put that on DLive and it's gone in 3 weeks, that doesn't help me, So YouTube's still the place to go for that right now. And I'm going to try to remain on as many platforms as possible. I really am. So, yeah, please reach out to me in multiple places. If I can make an impassioned plea one more time to people. One, on the most important way you could help me. Yes, sending articles and stuff, that's all great. You can put them on my Discord, which people have put up there. Oh, I need 1,000 people on DLive to get there. Okay, so I'm still chugging away. I hope a lot of people subscribe tonight. Please, please, please. Post my video. It's so weird. I could do a live stream and I get like 300-400 views. I do a video that I think's really good. It's like a 5-6 minute video. I get 30 people. So like I did this video on Bernie the other day. I thought it was good. It was about the Dems imploding and how they're now smearing Bernie with this Russia crap. And no one watched it. I got like 30 views. So please check out those videos I'm doing just on YouTube, like the non-live videos. Most of them are shorter. If you really want to do something fun, because I talk fast, put it on like double speed and then listen to me talk like this all day. This is really amazing, So yeah, but share those videos or share what you can with other people. I'd really appreciate it. It is literally the best way to help me. It literally is. I'm trying to grow the amount of people that see me. One, because I'm arrogant and I think that I'm awesome, but also because I do think that I'm putting things out there in a way that could help this country. I think that, I'm trying to get voices from all sides of the aisle. I think I'm trying to speak to normal Americans. And I think, I think that I'm doing a good job, I hope. And I hope that it's something that could help this country and help the direction we're going in. So if you agree with me, liking my videos, subscribing, sharing them with your friends on social media, or just sharing them with your friends in real life, I'd really appreciate it. Also, sometimes I'm funny. Not so much tonight. I was rambling too much. But there's Killer Kyle, who's also another one of my patrons. So thank you to Killer Kyle. And that's the other way you could donate to me. On the links, you can see Patreon and PayPal. You could donate me financially that way. Or if you're on DLive or YouTube, you could super chat or give lemons. I will be totally transparent about everywhere that the money goes. I haven't done a good job of specifically doing Patreon only things. But like, for example, this web around my background now, that was $60. The podcast service that I just got was $104. The lights that I just got set up in my home office, that was around $80, I believe. So I'm going to come up with a wish list too, just to let people know, here's what my next purchases are going to be. So I need to get like StreamYard or something so that I could bring more. Google Hangouts is what I use now if I bring someone on to have a debate with me. It's a pain. So I need a subscription to StreamYard. I need a mobile microphone, which the one I'm looking at is $250. That'll hook right into my iPhone. And then, it starts to get where I need, like, I'm using just a regular old laptop. I have problems all the time. You'll see when I'm on these streams with 6 people where my connection sucks. And it's because I think just the processing power. I don't know. I don't understand computers. The magical insides of the computer is not strong enough to handle how passionate I am. So yeah, I need to get a new computer. Then I need to get editing software. All this stuff costs money. So I do appreciate the financial support. Now, if you're in the financial position I'm in, you probably aren't supporting me because I could hardly support myself. So Don't feel bad if you're not giving money. I promise you, I'm not doing this channel for money. If I get money, that's a great bonus. I'm doing it because I believe it and I have fun. If I would lose all of my financial supporters tomorrow, I'd be right here tomorrow night doing my regular live stream at 11 p.m. tomorrow night. So, non-paid subscriptions have a time limitation. Okay, well, there you go. So, yeah. So I would appreciate your financial support, but even more than that, just getting my name out there, I'd really appreciate it. Yeah, I know, most of us are poor broke. But, yeah, just a scheduling note. So tomorrow's my normal live stream at 11 p.m. Tuesday night. I'll be doing that. I'm trying to get in touch with Mike from the Patriot Hour to do a video with him. He's awesome. One of the things I love about Mike is this. Mike's coming at things, right? You guys saw my ranting about Q, ranting about having no faith in Barr. Mike's coming at it from the other end. It's not necessarily that he has faith in Q or Barr, but he thinks they provided good information, and he thinks that Trump will take care of the corruption. Anyways, now, despite the fact that we have a disagreement, we love talking to each other, and we learn a lot from each other. And I think a lot of people want to take one of our side or the other, and I had people call in and tell me that, I'm going against God's will by questioning Bill Barr. I disagree. I don't know how else to put it. So, yeah, I think that I want to do some videos with him. I think that'll be great. Also, I'm going to be looking to do some videos with some other people in the panel. I do my Saturday night videos usually with SJG and Drone Tech. That only lasts an hour because my wife gets mad if I'm on more than an hour on Saturday night. So, yeah, and then some people are posting links to my Discord. Go there where you could all talk to each other and I could see what everyone's saying at any time of the day, which is great too. So, look for me to be putting out some more regular videos tomorrow. They will not be monetized because here's the other grift that YouTube puts on you. Okay, I get it. Potentially, I might say something that's not ad-friendly. So this is what they recommend to you. Well, then don't list your video. Set your video as private. Then submit for it to be manually reviewed. And it usually takes 2 hours and we'll give you a yes or no, whether it could be monetized or not. It takes them 40 hours. Most of my videos are something that's timely on the day. So I'm talking about Logan Act violations with Senator Murphy. No one remembers that story 48 hours later. So that's another way that they try to silence conservatives. So I say screw it. I'm just putting the video out when I make it. That's the way it is. So yeah, check my channel. I put videos out all the time on YouTube. DLive's just for the live stuff right now. Podcast, anytime I do a live show, I'll be putting it on the podcast. So just so you know, that podcast right now, let me put the link up if you want to follow it now. But like I said, this is going to grow, and it's going to be something that you can see on iTunes and other places like that. Let me show you. It's at Podbean. And tonight will be my first official podcast. So, all right. Well, hey, thank you all. As always, I am incredibly humbled. I had a great audience tonight. I think my best audience to date for a live stream. Had 50-something people watching at one time. I sincerely mean this. All of you that support me financially or not, the trolls that come on here even, the people that are just in my chat that are willing to listen to me, whether you agree with me or not, thank you so much. I think that it's amazing that people are willing to listen to what I have to say. I hope that it's entertaining or informational to you. I hope you have fun while you're listening. Thank you guys so much. It really does mean a lot to me. I would do this if I was talking to myself. I really would. But to know that there are people that are willing to hear what I say is really amazing. So thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to turn in tonight. And look for me to do that live stream tomorrow, 11 p.m. All right, everyone. Have a good one.